Hi guys, welcome to the BN20 virtual workshop brought to you by the Vinyl Guys. Today we're going to be doing a short video running through the VersaWorks software and the BN20 utility. For those that don't know, the BN20 utility is a virtual control panel. Unlike most Roland printers, you do not have a control panel on the actual machine. Everything is controlled on your PC. So, the BN20 will live in this bottom corner. Once it is opened, you will see the BN20 box in the right hand corner. So if you click on that, and it will open the separate dialog box. So first of all, we have 4 different tabs along the top. The BN20 is designed to tell you anything that the printer is up to, so the ink consumption, the calibrations, and any sort of maintenance that needs doing on the printer. So first of all, you have the ink tab. In there, it just gives you an idea of how much ink is remaining of each colour. You'll see there is a waste ink amount. At the minute it's at 0% because we've just put a new waste ink tank in our machine. That will fill up gradually, the same as the inks on the left hand side. So on this machine we've got double magenta, cyan, yellow and black. You'll see at each level, so the black, yellow and the second magenta is at 100% and the other magenta and the cyan is at 80%. The way it works, these are separated into 20% boxes. So as you get down to the last square, which is 20% or less, that gives you an idea of when to order your next set of ink. When it gets down to 20%, it tends to last quite a while and quite a few hours of printing. So I wouldn't worry too much about when it does get to that point. It just gives you an idea of when you need to order that new ink. It will allow you to get down to 0%. Even on 0%, I've known machines to carry on printing for a week or two. So again, do not panic. It's just there as a guide to give you an idea of when the ink is running low. You have a status box. So in there, if ever your machine is beeping and the secondary power light is flashing and you don't know why, if you open the BN20 utility, it will give you a short explanation why it's beeping. So the most common things I've known are the maintenance cover has been left open, the front cover has been left open. You'll have service codes, so if there's a wiper issue it will be service call 109, and if an ink is empty it will also say magenta, cyan, yellow, black. Whichever ink is low or empty, it will give you a brief description in the status box. So the first tab is ink. Like I say, very basic. Just gives you an idea of how much ink is left in your machine and also the waste ink amount. We will be doing a separate short video on the waste ink tank. There is many hints and tips that you can learn from the waste ink tank, so keep an eye on our socials and YouTube channel for that video. The next tab we have is the adjustment tab. So in there, this is designed for all your calibrations and your test prints. As you'll see, you have an adjust all option. If you click that, it will take you through each individual setting at a time. So you are calibrating your machine step by step. If you have certain issues with the bidirectional, you can just go direct to your adjustment and go through there. With your sheet feeding, with your cut force, your print and cut settings, so this will be when you're print and cutting stickers. If your cut line isn't where you put it in your artwork, if it's moved off slightly across your print, then you can do a print and cut adjustment in your BN20 utility. The crop cut adjustment, so for those that do not know, the crop cut is your print laminate cut essentially. So you can print with crop marks on your BN20, take it out, leave it for the recommended time to cure, laminate it, put it back in your machine, and then the machine will detect the crop marks and cut around your images. Again, there'll be another video at some point with the crop cut adjustment and also how to set that. So we will keep an eye out again for that video. Probably the most important thing and the thing you'll be using most in the BN20 utility is your manual clean. So the manual clean is your weekly maintenance where it will tell you to clean around the head, clean the wiper and clean around the cap top. This procedure is essential. Any sort of maintenance on your machine is essential to keep it running at the top spec. This just prevents any downtime in your work, any downtime in your machine, and any waste of ink or vinyl. So again, we'll touch on that in a second. But first of all, we'll just have a quick look at these settings here. So the first option you've got is check nozzle condition. So if your vinyl isn't loaded up, what will happen is it will flash up saying setup sheet. So every time you want to do something on the BN20 utility, you just have to make sure that your machine is ready to go. So what we'll do, press OK, and we'll set our vinyl up. So once the BN20 has set up, what you'll notice is in each individual setting itself, you'll be able to click onto it and it will open a separate dialog box. So in there you'll have a test print option. If you click that, it will send the information to the printer and you'll have a printout as you see on the right hand side and a brief description of what you're looking for. So in this case, you'll see each individual nozzle. If there's nozzles missing, you can do a normal clean, medium clean, powerful clean. You have to judge this on how many nozzles are missing. So if it's one or two, most of the time you can get away with that on the BN20. Just carry on printing. If you're not noticing anything in your prints, they will clear in time. The big issue is if you're missing a number of colours and nozzles across a number of the colours. So this is where you'd have to do a normal clean, a medium clean, or worst case, powerful clean. In my experience, I'd only do a powerful clean as a last resort, as it does tend to burn through ink. So again, you have to judge on which clean you think is most effective. So you select normal or medium, press go, and the machine will kick in, give itself an automatic clean, and then once that is finished, you can then click test print and hopefully them nozzles have reappeared. The next option we have is the bi-directional adjustment. So with this printer, you have got the option to print bi-directionally. So again, you can do a test print, and what it will do, it will print out each individual setting. So it will print a line going to the left, and as it comes back to the right, it will print another line. Your aim is to find the setting where the two lines overlap. Again, there will be further videos on the maintenance and calibration, so again, please keep an eye out for them, please. On the right hand side, again, it will give you another comment. So a little read through of what you're looking for. It will give you the current value it's set at. This will be indicated on your print with a upward pointing arrow. Whichever setting you think is the most effective, in new value you can just select and type in the number and setting you require, press apply, and that will then save that setting. You'll see the current value change when you do that. So if I set it to 3, press apply, that then changes the value of the machine. If that doesn't change, it hasn't worked, so you have to just do it again. The next setting, this is just a shortcut to what we've seen in the check nozzle condition. So in there we've seen the normal, medium and powerful cleans. This is just a shortcut, so if you know you need to do a normal clean, or Roland or your tech has asked you to do a quick normal or medium clean, you can just go into your utility, select the drop down box and choose whichever clean you want, press go, and the BN20 will perform that clean. The next one down is calibrate sheet feeding. So this is controlling the speed of which your vinyl is feeding forward. This will calibrate the sheet feed and the print of your job in the scan direction. So if this is out, what you'll find is you might have banding, you might have overlaps in your print, so you'll have thicker print lines. What you need to do, again, it gives you another explanation. So as you see, it'll print a row of light black squares. What you don't want is a gap between the two squares, and what you don't want is an overlap between the two squares. So the setting you're looking for is the option where the two squares are perfectly aligned. Again, like we've just seen in the bidirectional adjustment, you can choose the setting you want, so whether it be -2, when you press apply, the current value will change to whatever you set it to. So for our machine, we'll set it back to what I've calibrated it to, and it's applied it, and you can now see it in your current value, which is -2.3. To perform this, again, just press test print and it will send that across. Cut adjustment. So this is the same as any sort of cutter, printer, print and cut machine. Before you send a large run of stickers, print and cut stickers, you want to make sure that your cut depth is spot on. So you can do a test cut, and what it will do, again, another explanation, it will cut a circle and a square. Once it's finished, you can weed away that square, and if it peels off okay, you know you got the right amount of force. What I then do is weed away the circle, and what you want to look for is a slight indent in your test cut. If you can see a slight indent in your backing sheet, you know you've got the right amount of force. If it's too much of an indent, it might cut through and you won't be able to peel the sticker or decal off your backing sheet. If you don't see any mark and it struggles to weed out, you need to put the force up a little bit more. So on the cut force, say it's not cut deep enough, in there you can type in 100, press apply, and then do another test cut. If you find it's not quite cutting through, go up gradually, go up in 5 or 10s, and once you get to your successful cut, you haven't done any excessive damage to a blade or the cutting strip. So go up gradually and keep doing little test cuts until you've got your required depth. You can also change the cut speed and the amount of times it cuts. The cut speed, you can't go in higher than 15 centimeters a second, so that very rarely needs changing, and you very rarely need to slow it down. So the main option in there is the cut force. If you do change any of them and press apply, it will change the current cut force in your settings. Print and cut adjustment. So all this will be covered in the calibration of our machine when we come to that next video. So in here, again, the print and cut setting, what it will do, it will print a black square on the right and the left. It will then proceed to come back to its docking station, and then it will come back out and cut round each individual square. What you can see there, it gives the user an explanation of what you're changing and how to change it. So if the cut is out in that direction, you can use the plus and minus to go backwards and forwards, and the scan adjustment to go left or right. Because you haven't got a control panel on this printer, you have to go very gradually with the settings. So it will give you the previous settings it's set to, and you can slowly, again, gradually. So if it needs to go, as you see in the image there, if it needs to go to the left, the cut line needs to move to the left, you type in 0.2 millimeters. If it needs to come down, you type in -0.3 millimeters. If you do that gradually until you get your required print and cut, then that should be set. Everybody's interpretation of print and cut settings might be slightly different, so this is why we always advise to put a bleed on your artwork. This way, if there is any discrepancies on the calibration or there's any movement on the vinyl, The bleed just helps counteract that, and it stops any sort of white border going around your text or image. If you require any help with bleeds on artwork, please feel free to get in touch on our socials or on the email below. Once you've got your required print and cut setting, press apply. You'll see the settings in brackets will alter to what you've set. If you're unsure, always make a note of your current value before you start tweaking your print and cut. It can take a bit of time, so if you're unsure, make a note of it. You can always set it back to what it was to begin with. Wrap cut adjustment. So this will do exactly the same thing, but this is again to calibrate your print laminate cut. So when you take it out your machine with your crack marks, if you put it back in with the crack marks, it will then cut round it. You want to make sure that when you put that vinyl back into the machine, the printer knows exactly where it needs to cut. So it's the same sort of process as the print and cut setting. You're tweaking it with the settings it's showing in that dialog box there. So if it needs to come backwards or forwards, you'll have a plus and minus. Same for the left and right in the scan, you'll have a plus and minus. You'll see the current value in the brackets, and when you change the new values and press apply, you'll see the settings of them brackets change. Again, there will be a more in-depth video of these calibrations, so keep an eye out for that video. The last option is your manual clean. When you click on that, it will tell you to remove the sheet to begin with. The next tab we have along the top is the Replace Tools. So this is for your more in-depth maintenance. So if you need to change the cutting blade, you can click Replace Tool. All this will do is bring the head towards the middle of the bed and give you easier access to replace that blade. You can just open the front cover and change the blade without going through this menu. The only thing this menu does is stops the machine wanting to clean or move or print as you're changing that blade. So clicking on the Replace Tools button will deactivate the need for the printer to move. It will allow you to change the blade until you've physically finished and press finish on the utility. Replace wiper and replace felt wiper. Ideally, these will get changed anywhere between 6 to 12 months. For anyone again who doesn't know, the wipers, they wipe the surface of the head. So the wiper will get rid of the majority of the ink on the head after a clean, and the felt wiper will dab the sides of the head where the ink has been pushed to. It will give you an idea of when it needs changing. Again, in our next video, we'll do a calibration and maintenance. This will include all the diagnostics of what to look for when the wipers need replacing. And the last option is if ever you need to change the ink configuration, you need to set the machine back to factory default, or you're thinking of selling the machine and starting from scratch. So the first option is pumping. What that will do, that will ask you to remove the ink cartridges, and it will completely empty the machine of ink. Head wash. So for this you will need cleaning cartridges. So once you've done the pumping, it will want to flush the system with cleaning solution. So the head's clear, the dampers are clear, and the ink lines are clear. And the last option we have is the factory reset. Again, this will reset your printer back to factory settings, so it will delete your ink configuration and any calibrations you've done in the past. So again, avoid that last option unless necessary. If in doubt, contact your local tech or contact Roland for any other advice. So the BN20 Utility, very basic software. It's your virtual control panel and it always stays open. So every time you plug in your BN20 or you turn it on, this will flash up, and again you'll find it in your bottom right hand corner in your taskbar. So click it, open it, and it will be there for you ready. Okay, so what we're going to do now is have a quick basic tour of VersaWorks in regards to the BN20. This isn't an in-depth look of all the settings in the VersaWorks. This is just your basic settings to start printing with the Roland BN20. So the Roland VersaWorks, you double click to open it. What it will do, it will open up your dialog box, and now you can see your BN20 in the printer list, you'll see your job queue, and you'll see your preview queue. So the BN20 on the left hand side has got a green tick, it's saying ready to print. So whatever job you bring into your job queue, you can change the settings and you know it's ready to print. If there's no vinyl in the machine and the handle isn't clamped down, it will say setup incomplete. If the machine's turned off or the USB is unplugged, it will say not connected, as you see above on our VG2s. So at the moment in time, the BN20's got a green tick, it's ready to print. Where the green tick is, when your ink is running low, you will have a yellow exclamation mark, which means your ink status is running low. What you've got below it is your ink status, and it will also replicate, whichever colour is running low, it will also show that same exclamation mark. Again, if you're unsure, refer back to your BN20 utility, and that will show you what percentage, a more accurate percentage of what your ink is currently running at. Okay, so that's the Roland BN20 ready to print. So for demo purposes, I'm going to use the Roland test print. And we're just going to go through a basic setup of how to get printing with your Roland BN20. So within that, you've got your job listed in the queue, you've got your day you brought it in. So to change the job settings, you have your little cog on the bottom left corner, or you can double click. Either way will get you into the same dialog box, which is your job settings. If you have updated to the latest versions of VersaWorks, you will have a quick tour option that shows up in the bottom right hand corner, and it will give you a quick explanation of each setting you need to set within there. So you've got your print and cut options, you'll have your quality options, and you'll have your layout options. So for now, we're just going to close that down. So the maximum roll width you can fit on your machine is 500, and the maximum print width is 480. So I've loaded my vinyl in, so what we're going to do now is click Get Media Width. This will talk to your printer and it will detect your width of your vinyl. Again, in other videos we cover, we will be showing you the position of the pinch rollers. That will determine where it measures your width of vinyl. So as you can see, it's now detected my printer, and my working width is 474. So as you see, that is 474. I now know the width of my vinyl and how many copies I can fit on that job sheet. As you come down, you'll have scale, so you'll always bring it in at 100% whatever you set in your artwork. If, for instance, the same customer comes back a few weeks later and says, can I have that job again, but can I have it twice as big? Instead of editing your artwork, you can come to your scale and type in 200%. The downside of that is if they need a certain width, when you change the width, the height will change with it to keep it in proportion. If you need a custom size, you'll have to go back into your artwork and set it within your software. So for now, we'll set it back to 100%. For demo purposes, you do have a fit to media size. That is just click that and it will fit the job to the width of the vinyl. So for this instance, my customer per se wants this at a certain size. I do not want to fit it to media size. So say I could do it 50%, that makes it smaller. Center on media does what it says on the tin, it will put it in the middle of your sheet. The copies option, so I know I can fit 3 going that way. I have the orientation button at the bottom. I might be able to, I will be able to fit more on, and just depending on the size of the job, you can alter the spacing to maybe fit a couple more on the end if you had a smaller job than the one I'm demonstrating now. So there's your copies, and just for looks purposes, I always center that on the media if I can't fit any more on that vinyl. So now I've got my 5 jobs I want to do. I've got the media width, I've got my size, my spacing, and the orientation. It's entirely up to you. On the VersaWorks, this ruler along the top essentially is your printer. So this vinyl is going to feed in that direction. So that means if it's upside down on the display, the preview, it will print normally coming out of the printer. Again, doesn't make too much difference with your job because as you take it off and cut it and pack it, it doesn't really matter which way you print. If you're looking to promote your work on Instagram or Facebook, it just looks a little bit aesthetically a little bit smarter coming off the printer. So there's your basic layout. So I've got 5 jobs printing on my width of vinyl. I know them 5 are going to fit on the vinyl I've got in my machine. On the left hand side you'll have quality, and in this dialog box you're choosing the material you're printing onto. So you'll have your generic vinyl 1, you'll have your semi-gloss and high gloss glues, your clear films for your white ink, your textile heat transfer for your garment materials, and then just your photo papers and your self-adhesive vinyls. So again, if you're printing banner or canvas, try and find one that's closely matched to that. So normally I'd go for your generic vinyl 1. Select that one. Now in the print quality, a little tip, I find this is poorly worded. Standard, if you look at the resolution, is 1440 by 1080. That is a very high quality print, and it will use more ink than probably more than what's required. So if you go to draft, you'll see that's 1440 by 720, which is still a very high quality. And draft 2, which just by being called draft 2, you think that's going to be a slow, poor quality. But this resolution, 720 by 720, is your standard on your larger Roland printers. So draft 2 is, again, depending on your requirements, draft 2 is more than acceptable for the majority of prints. I tend to use draft because it gives you that little bit of extra quality without losing too much time, using too much ink, and you get a high quality print. As you come down, this should all be set on install by your tech. The main thing for you to know as a user is the colour management. So you drop that box down, you'll have a number of different colour management. So the True Rich colour, completely ignore them for your BN20. The True Rich colours relate to the VG series and the SG series because they use the TR ink, which is the True Rich ink. If you sent this job at each one of them different settings, you will get a different shade of each colour every time. From experience, I use silent display as standard. That will always replicate whatever colour you've brought in as best as possible. If you've got a matte material, you can use max impact, so your textile material. If you use max impact, it will make the magentas and the cyans stand out a little bit more. And then pre-press US, pre-press Europe tend to be the other 2 I use. Pre-press Europe is good for skin tones. Pre-press US I find is good for grayscale and black and white images. But again, we'll have more information on those settings at some point, but for now we're just going to do the basic setup, which is silent display. I won't go through all this now, but the next setting is the cut controls. So this is where you're setting what you want to do. So this is print only. If I set to print and cut, if the VersaWorks has detected a cut line from your artwork, it will then cut round there. Cut image boundaries will do your weed box around each, so you'll see the red marching ants going around your image. That just indicates where it's going to cut your weed border. Again, if you had a cut line around certain objects in this image, you will see the red marching ants going around that image as well. If I select print only, you'll see them lines disappear. And you can use cut only if you've just got your CAD cut material, which you can get in various different colours. So most of the time, basic setup, you're doing your layout, so you're choosing your width and your copies. Your quality, you're choosing what material and your print quality. And then your colour management is silent display. Cut controls, again you're choosing if you're doing print only or cut only, or print and cut. One thing to remember with your copies, you can't do over 250 copies at a time. So if you've got 1,000 stickers to do, you'll have to print this job 4 times. Or you can cheat, go into your artwork, set four copies in your artwork, and then you can print 1,000 at a time. There is a setting called Custom Cut, which if you check our YouTube channel, I have done a separate video of the use of Custom Cut. It is highly useful for your 10-metre jobs, print and cut jobs. So yeah, check that out on the Vinyl Guys YouTube channel. So once you're happy, you can press OK. This now sets your job. So when you're ready, you can press print at the bottom. Print count, you can do a number of different prints. You can press print, it will jump into the RIP queue. When that gets to 100%, it will then jump into the print status and start printing. So for now, I'll just abort it, I don't want to print it. And that is your basic setup with a BN20 in VersaWorks and the use of a BN20 utility. Be sure to keep an eye on our YouTube channels, the Vinyl Guys, and also keep in touch via our social media sites on Instagram and Facebook. We will be doing more videos on the BN20 utility and everything else BN20 related. So if there's any questions on the video I've just done or any videos you'd like to see, please feel free to contact us again on social media and also email at tech@thevinylguys.co.uk.